What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to The Right Mindset, where we get to interview authors on their process of writing, their career, and also maybe their insight into the publishing industry, whether it be self-publishing or traditional. Today, we have Mr. JD Estrada coming in to say hello and tell us a little bit about his process and all. How's it going, JD? How's life?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Greetings, fellow humans. I'm having my Twin Peaks tea in tribute to our fallen David. I was a big fan of the guy. He was
Mm-hmm.
surreal. He had no F's to give. He did things on his own way, and he had an indie mindset that dude, I'm gonna miss that guy. I'm gonna rewatch him and just enjoy it. But happy
Yeah.
to be here.
Excellent director. Horrible last name because of the indication of its history, but the poor guy tried, right?
Yeah.
Some people might remember his stuff. He might have left an impression on the
Maybe.
world of art and creativity. Um, Speaking of Mr. Fincher, David Lynch, right? That's what you're talking about, right, David?
Yeah.
The Lynchster,
The
uh,
Lynch thing.
the Lynchster. Do you ever, because you're an author and you have like 1,000 books on Amazon?
Just 22.
Yeah. Well, I was rounding up. I like to round up, just for clarity. But more importantly, when you let's just jump right into it. When you approach your books and stuff like that, because you mentioned David, so I'm assuming you like film and television and the visual medium.
Mhm.
Do you allow that to influence the way you write your books, where there's a sense of cinematic movement, or do you focus mostly on the long narrative aspect of writing and let it just be more of a novel?
No, anything that can feed into the process and into the project, I'm just gonna go with it. And each project is its own little beast. It's not. I don't have a specific method that I use for every single book. For me, every project I have to approach it differently. Influences from film, that happens. Influences from music and other books, that happens as well. Sometimes I have a mindset. I have middle grade books. When I write middle grade books, the short stories, I try to think of the Saturday morning cartoons that I grew up with and that made me smile. And I want to have that little encapsulated moment. But I'm thinking animated. It's like, okay, what would look good animated? And then I think of the different cartoons that blew me away. For the middle grade novel, I have one that's called Given to Fly. And that one I had very clear that I wanted to channel my version of Miyazaki because I saw the movie Ponyo, and after coming out of that movie, I had so many good things, good impressions that I wanted to do a project like that. When I got the idea for Given to Fly, I was at Epcot Center.
Yeah.
Okay, my wife gifted me a custom made notebook with the
Okay.
title of the book and and a picture of the single from Given to Fly from Pearl Jam, which is my favorite band. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what am I gonna write? And I was just obsessing and I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. Then we go on our first couples trip to Orlando. And we went to the Magic Kingdom, we went to Hollywood Studios, and then we went to Epcot. And in Epcot, there's a ride called Soarin'. So Soarin' is a flight simulator. You're in the paraglider. It's 4 rows. It lifts you up, and it's got some movement. It's got this huge screen with the
Oh, they give you a
visuals
hit
of
of
the building.
acid before you go on, and you sit in a regular
If
steel chair, but it feels like it's moving.
No, if people took acid, and I'm sure there have been, because if I know people that went to Universal Studios and dropped acid before going um
Well,
on
you
the
got to take
Dr.
acid
Seuss
before
ride.
you go to Florida, so.
It's well, and the fluoridization. Anyways, I get on the ride. The ride lasts about 3 minutes. During this ride, in the Matrix, when Neo gets injected like information, he's like,
He's like,
that.
"Whoa, yeah, I know kung fu."
So I had that, but with the idea for the novel, like, so I had the idea, and it was like, whoa, what the? It was just so
Yeah.
intense because I vividly saw like the entire plot. I get off the ride, I'm misty eyed, and then I'm crying, and my wife is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I have the idea for the book," and she's like,
I just
she's
crapped
like,
my pants, and I have an idea for a book.
no, and she's like, "What?" and then I told her, and then I'm like, I need a second to write stuff down.
Yeah.
I wrote stuff down, and then I did the outline when I got back from vacation. From that outline, that so idea, jot down ideas, get back home, outline everything. The only thing I didn't use was the outline for one chapter and one location in
Yeah.
a house that is a recurring theme. So yeah, I allow myself to be influenced by whatever and wherever. If it's animated, if it's gory, sometimes what I like about David Lynch is it's a mood piece constantly, and it's like sometimes you want that mood. I don't want something that obtuse and random and surreal, but what I feel when I see that, okay, how can I do that? How can I approach
Yeah.
that? And then you get a crazy idea, and you go like, if this guy was able to do that, then I can do that. This is nothing.
Of course, yeah.
So
That makes
so
sense. And like for someone like Given to Fly, the way it comes off, that's a middle grade book, you said?
yeah,
Yeah. The way it comes off is very third person omniscient. And
yeah.
was that on purpose so you can sort of have what do we call it? An opinion, or put in some sort of like you're narrating it almost like you're
Well,
having.
the thing is that okay, the main character is John Rivers. He's an 11-year-old boy who moved to the Pacific Northwest.
Is this Joan Rivers' child?
No, this is just I wanted the archetype of a nice kid that overthinks too much and sometimes says stuff that is kind of adult but it's still a kid.
Yeah.
And I was looking at my nephews, and I was looking at stuff that I said when I was growing up, and that fed into it. But the other main character is Fayed Otstein. Fayed Otstein is my literary persona.
Oh, so
So
what do you call it? An insert?
yeah, the thing is
Yeah.
that I have JD participates in certain stories, but I also have Fayed. Fayed is a character, and it is a construct, and it is how I interpret myself in a literary way. So I did not just the omniscient. I just wanted to be part of the story. I wanted to be part of the adventure. Some people say like, dude, you're like kind of like Willy Wonka and Cheshire Cat, and I'm like, okay, noted. So I'm not a
Wait,
cat
so is that character telling the story, or because when I say omniscient, I mean like the narrative knows things that the character doesn't know, and it almost imprints an informative thought to it. So I think that's a little different than the insert. You know what I'm saying? Like the insert would
it's
have thoughts, but you
so
know,
Fiat kind of knows what's going to happen, and you're always wondering how much he knows of what's going to happen because
you're talking about the
technically
character again.
the character.
Oh, I'm talking about
And
the how you're writing the narrative itself. Like the
and
narrative
but
is omniscient.
the question is whether it's from Fayed's own third person perspective because he knows what's going
Yeah,
on,
like is he telling the story?
or if it's me, and I'm never going to answer that because that's not for me to reply. That's for people to read and go like, hey, this could be this. And the thing is that no matter how you answer it, you're going to get a different experience, and which I always enjoy. I enjoy leaving. Not always. Sometimes people leave like open endings that it's like, for me, for a short story, an open ending, I love it. And most of my short stories have an open ending. That's
Yeah,
fine. For a novel, no. For a novel, I like to have,
a
you
clear
know,
beginning, middle, and end.
yeah, that it can continue. Of course, life is life.
Well, yeah,
But I,
it should be a cutout moment of an existence.
yeah,
Like
but sometimes you read a book and it ends, and you go like,
they lived happily ever after
no, they
with
lived
no
happily.
legs.
No, they lived ellipses, and you go like,
Do you normally write your books in third person omniscient? Is that a go to style for you, or are you do you have a different like second person maybe, or first
no.
person or third person limited close or something?
Never written in second person, have written in other third persons, and have written in first person. It depends on the genre. That's how I shift it. Normally for me, third person works best when I'm writing fantasy just because I have more control. I can describe more things. But if I'm going to write horror or something very personal,
You like
um,
to do first person?
it just allows me to lock into the emotions and what the character is feeling better.
What do you
So
feel more comfortable with in general? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you. Like
bring
sometimes
all the
answers.
questions.
Yeah, no. I want to try to dissect, you know, like for example, if I go, how do you write? And you go, oh, I start with an outline, and then you just kept going. Like I want to dive a little deeper into, well, how do you outline? You know, like so the listener can learn a little bit. You know, like it's so please forgive any interruptions. Just I'll hear something and then I'll want to like dive deeper
Hey,
into it. It's not me trying to cut you off. It's more of like you know, my autism.
I
It
welcome.
just takes over.
Send my best to your autism
All right,
and your
thanks.
uncleism.
How's he doing?
Anyways,
So
I,
yes, my question is, what do you feel more comfortable writing in when it comes to those POVs?
um, I think to not dodge the question. I think I feel more comfortable with third person, but I don't always default to that. What I do default is to outlining and seeing, having an idea of where it's going to write, unless I'm going to pants the story because that project asks for that. So I write down the idea, and then I go like, okay, what would feel better? And then I start writing the first sentence. Does it feel good? Does it feel off? Then the first paragraph, and so on and so forth. And the thing is that by the end of the first paragraph, I already locked in a POV that I'm going to be writing.
Yeah, you're like, this feels right. When you say third person, do you because it's always nice to see how everybody writes. You know, that's the whole point is to say that every author's different. And you know, a lot of authors, especially new ones, they start off and they get concerned. They go, well, I don't write like this. Am I doing it wrong? And it's like, no, everybody has a different perspective on how they approach writing. And when you say third person, are you saying limited close, or are you saying omniscient? Like, which one is most comfortable when you say third person?
I think limited, because omniscient, I have written it and I might have a chapter, because even though I'm writing in third person, there may be a chapter that the POV is more omniscient because it's either the perspective of a deity or something, or who knows,
Well,
or
yeah, but
someone
Given to
who
Fly
just
is all omniscient, though.
uh
The prologue, at least in the first
no.
chapter, definitely omniscient.
So it's always omniscient, but I think that I could even take omniscient even further, just to dive into exactly what everyone is feeling, even more detailed.
Well, yeah,
So
that's
it
the
would be,
omniscient part, right? Yeah,
yeah, but it would be, I would say it's limited omniscient, and it's not fully omniscient, because sometimes when you read Dune, you have inner monologue from everyone and exactly what they're feeling, and it's like full on
oh yeah, that's
omniscient, that
omniscient.
they know
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything, that they know everything. I like to take a little step forward, a little step back. I like to limit it a little bit, just because I don't want to show everything. I want to allow the story to reveal itself a bit more. I do feel more comfortable with third person, just because it might be because I play so many video games, and just the dynamic of playing a video game is almost
Yeah.
third person. Even when you're playing a first person shooter, you're still sitting in your couch with a controller, and you're still controlling the narrative that way. So maybe that's an influence into how I write and how I approach a story. And also because when I go first person, again, it's because I want to lock into the emotions more, and I really want it to be more visceral in terms of an experience.
Yeah.
I want to sit down, and I want to meditate about it. I want to be the person. I want to suffer what they're going to suffer, etc. Just because I want it to be a lot more kinetic versus more descriptive. When I go third person, it's just so that I can have fun with those descriptions, because that's some of my favorite things to write, is just to describe a dream state,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
because dreams make no sense, but they're beautiful and scary and cringy and crazy and sweet, and everything in between. And you notice things that you go like, okay, why is there a lollipop river? And then you go like, okay, so what is a lollipop river? Is it because that's the flavor? Are there crystallized lollipops? And then you can go into the description in several different ways, just to
Yeah, but
paint a
sometimes the
different
curtains are
picture.
just blue. You know that argument? You know that where
uh,
like in English class they're like, let's study this. And you're like, well, sometimes the curtain's just blue. Like it might not have anything to do with their political stance. You know what I'm saying?
no,
Like
No,
they
it's,
just
it's
like blue
sometimes
curtains, you know?
sometimes people's interpretations blow me away. The two things that blow me away are interpretations and the characters that people ship. That you go like, huh?
Why are they
Um,
dating? I get it. I get it.
no, in
Uh
the human cycle, there's a vampire, there's a human, and people have shipped them. And I'm like, there is a gay character. You don't need to ship these people who are not. They're
You don't want
And
to
I
see a
like this key character.
300-year-old character with a 16-year-old girl? What's wrong with you? You have what do you have? Decency and morals? How
and
dare
and
you?
and taste. No, my vampires do not sparkle. By the way, I
Oh, well,
refuse.
are
I
they vampires
refuse.
then? If they're not giving piggyback rides to people up mountains, are they really vampires? So when
Oh
you were
Lord.
writing, you were saying you like first person because it gives you a chance to kind of dig deep into the emotional sense of it. Touching on actors and stuff like that, sometimes they get deep into a character and it takes them a little bit to get away from it. Do you find when you write in first person that you sometimes have to take a little bit to get out of that character's mindset to like relax and be like, I'm not that person? Or is it the same if you write third person or first person?
Normally, when I write a short story, I try to do it within 1 or 2 days. Just because I want to capture lightning in a bottle. It's like with a poem, you sit down, you write the thing, and then you might polish it a little bit. But I don't like my poetry to be that polished. When it comes to a short story, I want to do it in that time frame, and also because it doesn't happen always, but sometimes it does take you a little while. It's not that I'm a method writer and I'm doing a deep in trance meditation, but it on certain occasions it's like, okay, let's dive deeper and I want to have that visceral experience. I want to know exactly what it's like. I don't want to just be the writer. I want
Yeah.
to be the person experiencing it and chronicling what this character is going through, and that's kind of my approach when I write first person. And you come across some topics that are rough or scary. And the thing is that when I write horror, it is often in first person. And I go back and I think when I was a kid, because when you're a kid, you're susceptible to things and you're just afraid of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, but but,
when
but
you're
I
when you're
think oh, go ahead.
when you're afraid of something as an adult, you have irrationalized it to the point where something scares you, or you had a traumatic experience. When you're a kid, you're having those experiences for the first time. I
Yeah.
remember watching Predator as a kid, and the thing is that a predator is never gonna kill a kid. That's part of their code, with the exception of Alien versus Predator 2, where they even go into a Niku ward because obviously
Hey,
they need
listen,
to
I
stay
get it.
up there.
When I was a child, I lost a game of bridge against a family of spiders, and I am afraid of spiders to this day. But what I'm saying is like when you're approaching a character in first person and you're going into these deep emotions,
Mm.
does it take you a little bit to sort of like? Do you ever find yourself like, oh, you walk away from the book a little bit and you're like, oh, I'm still in that character. Like, is it hard for you to get away
No,
from the characters, or do you stay
no,
with the characters?
that's why I try to finish the story in 1 or 2 days, so that if I stay locked into the character, I can eventually walk away, and there's distance between me and the story, because sometimes you're writing something that's so vivid that you dream about it. The only person I've ever read that made me, or the first person that I ever read that made me dream vividly of the story that I read, was H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, but now
Uh,
you're not allowed to like him.
I like his work, and the things that one of my favorite short stories is
Yeah, you
very
got to burn the
questionable.
books, sir.
No, no, it's very questionable because of the name that he gave to a cat, and I'm not going to say that because I don't want you to get blocked. Um,
I
and and
appreciate
and Lovecraft was the first lesson I ever had of separating the artist from the work,
Yeah.
because as a person he was absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
Um,
but you know, uh, talking about that though, like just the concept. What are your thoughts on? Because you're saying you had to separate the artist from the work, but I think the work is also what's in question in the argument where they're like, well, he also was a horrible person and he put his horrible thoughts into his stories. But
mhm.
if you connect to the stories, does that make you a hard? I'm thinking
Well,
about the cat's name right now. Just
no,
uh,
don't.
no, no,
It's
you
hard.
can't.
Don't
It's
think about the pink elephant and
no, you
the pink
can't. Well,
elephant's
you
touch.
listen. I get it. But how can people approach art, especially from writers, when you know if you connect to something and you know that the author is a horrible person, but maybe it's not, you're connecting to something that has nothing to do with what is horrible. It's just maybe you were a kid and you read Lovecraft and whatever,
Uh,
Cthulhu is
uh,
Cthulhu, you know what I'm saying,
I'm gonna give you an example that I think will elaborate my point a little bit. Chronicles of Narnia. My first favorite book was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, of course.
I read it either last year or 2 years ago, and I still have a fond relationship with that book. Am I Christian? I
No,
grew up Catholic, but am I Christian? Am I diehard Christian? No.
yeah, no.
Would Jewish people, would people who practice Islam, would atheists enjoy the Chronicles of Narnia?
It
Very
depends.
possible,
You know, if you like
but very possible.
Portal fans.
If you, which I adore portal fantasies,
Yeah,
and for me, it's one of the most fun aspects of writing a fantasy, just because there are no rules.
yeah,
So if a person who is an atheist can enjoy The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you can enjoy other stuff, and it doesn't mean that you. It's not that it's not going to influence you. It's that maybe it just passes over your head. And this is not going to be like a subliminal message that part of you is just going to be
yeah. But
a
now you
horrible
know,
racist.
though. You know, like
No,
Lovecraft, and the truth. Like, how do you? It's like Bill Cosby. You know, Bill Cosby as a person is evil, but like what he did with the Cosby Show and his stand up routines revolutionized not only the black community or the black story, or even the idea of the black nuclei of the family, and
Mhm.
how they could be a doctor, a lawyer, but they still had everyday issue. Like, it was still a full thing. And it's like what they did with those stories, in books or otherwise, to influence generations and to create a perspective. Because imagine not knowing who Bill Cosby is, watching the Cosby Show and going, wow, this is such a positive and great experience. It's funny, it's emotional, it has a lot of
it's
truth to it. And then
it's
you
well
find out
written.
it's well written,
It's
right? And then the creator's a monster, and then you're like, you
so
know, but
I,
that goes to
I
Neil Gaiman too. Right now is dealing with some craziness, and whether it's true or not, if it is true, it's, oh my god, what the hell,
my
and
my issue with the Gaiman situation right now is that, okay, in my experience in life, so there's two versions of a story. It's point A and point B, and probably the reality is somewhere in the
in
middle,
between.
etc.
Yeah,
Even the in between of what is being said about Gaiman is awful, and things that he said, no, I didn't do this, I did that. It's like, that's your defense.
I didn't
And
cut
I'm
their
not
foot off; it was their hand.
exactly. I just cut off a finger,
It
and
wasn't the
it's
whole hand; it was just the pinky.
and I'm one of those people that is struggling because the Sandman is very special to me.
Yeah,
Um, Coraline is very special to me, and I don't. It's my choice to either be selfish and steal these works away from the authors. I still love the Harry Potter series. Not a
yeah,
fan
yeah,
of
yeah.
J.K. I'm not a fan of J.K. Rowling. I'm still a Ravenclaw at heart because of what that means in my context, in my life, etc. Some people go like, "Yeah, but if you say that, you're still supporting her and whatnot." And I'm like, I can see your point, but can you see mine?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, everyone wants to be like team A or team B, and I'm like, life is not about team sports. And the team sports have ruined us in so many ways, and that's one of the ways. Just because everyone wants an absolute answer and stands for everything, and
Yeah.
life is a hell of a lot more nuanced than that. So
And more importantly, though, like, you already have the book, so you already have Caroline, right?
yeah,
So, like, should you get rid of it? Are you allowed to keep it? Like, what? Like, are you a bad person because you have an emotional connection to this? But this book may have been a life node to you that directed you in a certain way, and it's like, yeah, I don't have to buy it again. Like, I'm not,
I, I
you know.
I think, okay, depends on the medium. It's gonna be, and it's gonna be hard for people regardless, or it's gonna be easier regardless. But with movies, you're seeing the person that did the thing, and that's an issue. Just because you constantly have this person here, with the book, you know that you're reading something by this person. So let's take a step back. When you're seeing a movie, who participated in that movie? Yes, there is that actor or director or producer or writer, but there's also several other actors. There's people, there's dolly grips, there's people doing special effects, visual effects, etc.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a lot of people that contributed to this work, and because of what someone did, they're ruining it for everyone. And I'm not saying that you have to keep watching the movie. If watching the movie, reading the book, or listening to the song, and we'll get to that soon, trigger something in you, then don't do it. I haven't been able to watch Bill Cosby stuff since all of these things surfaced. I have been able to watch a couple of interviews with Louis C.K. after his situation surfaced, and that's a really complicated, really messy conversation to have that some people just don't want to have it because again, everyone wants to be absolutist, and it's like yes or no, and it's like we got to burn him in the cross, and I'm like, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And you're
when
talking
we go,
basically about the Roseanne thing because like they had to get rid of her and rename the whole show because everybody on there got fired because of her. And they're like, why don't we just call it the Connors and kill her off? And it's like you
and
can't do that with a finished book, though.
agreed, but okay, they did that with Roseanne, but they haven't been able, and they won't be able to do that with other stuff and other projects. And again, everyone is pushing for these, side A or side B. With music, that's the one where I see people um, either just not knowing or ignoring
Well, Aerosmith,
because
you can't listen to them anymore. You
no,
can't
no,
listen
but
to Led Zeppelin. You can't listen to, like every one of them. I mean, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister married a girl. Like it's just, well, when I say marry a girl, I mean like a girl, like a little girl. But her parents gave him the right to adopt. Anyway, it's just all craziness.
it's craziness. But if you don't know Dee Snider, don't know if you don't even know the artist, but you listen to
Oh,
the
I
song
do.
and you hear that.
I
But
do.
if
Huh?
you
I grew up on Long Island. I know his son and everything.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if cool, but interesting.
Well, yeah, I'm from the music
Um,
industry. That's where I started. That's where my career kind of blew up.
okay, but Dee Snider is an interesting. It's an interesting example to bring. Okay, he did that. He got consent, etc. It's weird. It's
They're still together today,
so it. Okay, it's not
right?
Lewis Carroll. Lewis Carroll was messed up.
Well, there you go. Right?
Okay, but with Dee Snider, okay, you did that and you find fault in that. Okay, granted, I understand why you find fault in that and why that's uncomfortable. His stance and the way that he approached Congress when he was talking about the lyrics and parental advisory, etc.
Yeah, yeah,
His
yeah.
speech, you're gonna tell me that that speech and what he said and the content of that speech is bad. I'm not saying that other stuff is not questionable. I'm saying isolate this thing. Is this a good thing? Yeah, but, and it's like you can keep the buts, dude. Just because someone is questionable in X or Y thing doesn't mean that they weren't able to do a good thing.
What you're talking about is nuance, and I think that's an important element of humanity. Like even FDR, serving as many terms as he did, but dealing with his polio, but he also slept with his cousins, and his wife was a lesbian, and they technically were not really in a marriage; they were a partnership, right? So I don't see anything wrong necessarily with his choices back then, but today it would be completely off the table unless you're the ex-mayor of New York, right? So, because Giuliani married his third cousin. But like, my point is, he did a lot of greatness for the country back then during that time, especially with World War II, all these other things, right? And I understand what you're saying. It's like, well, maybe we don't have to appreciate what somebody did. We don't have to like that person. But if they did something great, we still need to acknowledge the influence of that greatness in a sense of like, because again, we also learn morally. We're stuck with what we know until we know what like we have to evolve. And
How do you apply what you learned or what you listened to or what you read or what you watch? How do you apply that? Because if you apply something that was done by a negative person that might have some subtext or some subliminal stuff that are questionable, but you apply it in a way where it had a positive impact, then the art is the art.
yeah, but
If
you
you were
still
if
need
you were if you were if you were borderline suicidal, you read Harry Potter and Harry Potter saved your life because you found a Patronus, etc., and then you see all the stuff that J.K. Rowling spews, and you go like, Ugh,
It's like, oh, how
how
do
do
I?
you?
Yeah,
For me, and again, this is a personal stance. If you wanna disagree, it's possible because people can't seem to accept disagreement as a thing. And this goes with writing as well. I write stuff that I don't expect everyone to be on the same page as me, but
yeah,
this is how I feel about X or Y thing. Anyways, going back to it. Um, if you as a person choose to cherish this thing that saved your life, because I know people and I've read about instances of people that were borderline depressed, that were suicidal, that read or watched or listened to something and it saved their life,
yeah.
you are in your entire right to keep this art, because this art, as soon as I publish something, it's no longer mine. At the very most, it's ours.
Yeah. But then there's the
And th-
counter argument, which goes back to the D. Snyder thing. Ozzy Osbourne released Suicide Solution, and people thought he was saying "get the gun" in the song, but he wasn't. And somebody killed themselves, a son or a child of somebody, and they were blaming Ozzy. And it's like, well, Ozzy didn't do the thing,
Judas
and he
Priest.
also didn't do the thing in the music. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, how do you I think when it comes down to it, though, nuance is the important element of the discussion. That, like, there are some things that are absolutely on the table of disgusting, and then there are some things on the table that are absolutely considered, I don't know, morally righteous or white what you call it, well
Morally great.
intended, you
All right.
know.
Sorry.
But then there's like the middle. You got middle grounds. For example, like even like murder is bad, but killing someone to protect yourself, good. Like,
Exactly. Well,
so is killing bad? Right? Like,
I
it comes down to nuance and tension. Because
but
killing
going back
isn't
to
bad.
nuance, it wouldn't be a good thing. It would be justified. It would be the right thing to do. But it's not necessarily a good thing because you're still killing someone.
All right,
But
but what if you're killing an animal for food? But here's the other argument. This country kills all the people in this country. Who was right?
who,
One of them did the good thing because they were monsters. And then
no,
the other ones were like, no, they're monsters. We're trying to stop that. Right?
yeah,
It's like,
it's
what's that
all about
argument? They all
no, but
pray
it's
to God. They go, God, please be on our side during this war. And God's like, you're the same people,
exactly.
But the
Now,
winners are like, God had our back.
what I find fascinating, touching lightly religion and conflicts, it's okay because people are going to say Islam and Christianity and certain. Okay, I get that because those are, and if you read, they overlap more than people realize, and there's shared
Yeah.
characters and shared stories and shared narratives. But we're not going to go into that. We're gonna flip it. When I see Christian people that hate Catholics, that hate Protestants, I go like, guys, you're reading from the same book.
Yeah.
We're
Because
not
all
even talking
Catholics, what is it? All Catholics are Christians, but not all Christians are Catholic.
exactly. It
Because you
and
have to
it's
believe
and
in
it's
Christ to be a Catholic.
and it's like, oh, that type of Christian, that Buffalo Ranch Christian is not barbecue Christian and is not avocado ranch.
You're
It's
a
like
Baptist?
exactly.
Weird.
And you see people that they go to the blows and they attack themselves viciously over the differences that are technically nuances. And
Now,
it's
what?
like, okay, I don't get it. I don't
Well,
get it. And
speaking
people
of the
obsess over
nuance,
that.
let's go the other way. Let's say you read a book, right? And the
Yeah.
book is filled with just pure hatred and evil, and there's everything that people would have an issue with is in this book, including the cat name. All right. Now, you learn that the author is everything that people would fight for because they believe in everything the author believes in real life. So let's say they are, you learn that they are exactly the gender organized understanding that you care for. They have the religion you care for. They are the color skin you care for because color, I don't know, apparently is important, right? Right, they everything they donate to all the foundations that you believe in. Like, they are literally the perfect example of everything you aspire to be. But their book is pure, unadulterated evil. Can you support that book? Would you support that book because it's from a good creature, right? Like it's now the reverse though. Like, do we destroy the author because the book is terrible, or do we accept the book because the author is amazing? Right?
I would want to know what the reason for the book being is,
Art,
because because
art, art,
if it's for the sake of art or for
art.
making a case for freedom of expression and stuff like that,
Yep, that's
which
all it
is
is.
it's completely possible. Um,
But Bill
I'm not
Cosby
gonna
made
ban
the
it.
Bill Cosby show on art. It was a way to express this thing, right? Because
But
art is
what we're
art.
talking about, the person being positive and then having this, even if it doesn't exist, even if those motivations don't exist, I'm not saying that you have to support it or not. If you enjoy it, or at the very least, you find it as a topic
Imagine
of
you did enjoy it.
conversation.
Yeah.
Well, there's some people that enjoy stuff that I go like, really? Okay.
Yeah, I like the
But if
cat's name.
now, if you have it as a topic of conversation so that you can
Yeah.
engage it with people, then it is completely valid.
Yeah, but how do
Because
I but the question is, what do we do with the relationship between the author and the book? Because again, if the book is all that you believe in and is great and is this pure version of everything that you aspire to, but the author is a monster. The clear answer that everyone is throwing out is throw everything that they have out in the garden. It's evil because they wrote it. But reverse it, and the
yeah,
author is the purity of what we aspire to, but the book is everything that we disagree with and are we absolutely as a society consider uh, evil.
if I'm completely 100% against book bans, because a book being good or bad, that is relative. Even stuff that you go like, really? If
Oh, so
you bring
you're
the art,
saying don't ban a book like Neil Gaiman's books. We shouldn't ban his books.
because it could, I do support the separation of art and artist. In terms of banning or not, it becomes a personal stance of, okay, how are you gonna go to the library to get the book so that he doesn't get money, or are you gonna go and photocopy it, or
Yeah, yeah.
are you gonna
Well, that's
pirate it?
illegal.
Ah, yeah, but so is the stuff that he did. Some of it.
It's still there.
Uh,
Like if I killed somebody, right, and then somebody tried to kill me, it is still illegal for them to try to kill me.
mhm.
You like it
It's
doesn't matter that what I did was illegal. Like you can't do an illegal thing because well they did something bad too. So I could do it bad. Like that isn't how the law works, you know?
I think that having these books as a topic of conversation, so we can talk about the book, we can talk about the topics that are discussed, and we can talk about the author, allows us to enrich our lives more.
So you're
I
saying we
am
shouldn't boycott the Bill Cosby show
no,
or
because
Louis C.K. comedy or anything.
no, you know, you have the right to say I'm not into that. Again,
Yes.
I tried watching Bill Cosby and I couldn't, because it elicited a lot of reactions within me. And the thing is that I grew up with this show and I
Yeah.
saw this show and I still remember scenes that I'm very fond of. And then when I tried watching it, I just couldn't let go. So I'm not going to engage with it.
Yeah.
But
Every time
if
you
someone
handed someone a drink, you're like, don't take it.
but if someone again, if someone had a positive experience with that and it led them to good things, why are we going to eliminate it? And eliminating stuff is not going to make us smarter, it's going to make us dumber.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have to not necessarily the dumber thing, but like we have to have the choice because it helps us learn and educate. Like for example, if like let's say there is a book that's written and the book is centered
Mark Twain,
around
dude. Mark
what?
Twain. Mark
What
Twain.
what yeah,
And
but
the boulderized versions. And I
yeah,
don't
but
mean to cut you off, but the boulderized versions,
where
it's
they
like
rewrote it.
we
Yeah.
I'm like, then we're not
It's
going to
not the
have
same
important
book.
conversations, and we're not going to have important conversations about why what he wrote. There's some things that it's like, dude, we should learn from this, and we should be better.
Yeah, but all art is an opportunity for us as people to discover who we are. And like, for example, uh, I talk about this psychological study where it's an idea, right? So a reporter goes to this guy. He's one of twin brothers, right? And he's really wealthy and successful. And the interviewer goes, "Why are you super successful and your brother's in prison for murder?" And he goes, I don't know. Why don't you ask our father? And then they go to the other brother in prison, and he says, why are you in jail for killing somebody, and your brother's super successful? And the brother says, I don't know. Why don't you ask our father? And it's because we as people take things from our experiences, our perspective, and the way our brain works, and we assimilate into a personality. We assimilate. Like, I drink dietary Pepsi for many reasons that have nothing to do with it being Pepsi, right? It's you. Everybody like the phone I use has everything to do with who I am and less to do with the phone. Just like we like certain movies or music, or we like certain books, because it has everything to do with who I am and less to do about the book, because it's marketing. You're a copyright, right? So marketing uh, is everything from, well, my brother and I used to laugh over this comic, so I have an emotional connection to this comic, so I like this comic, right? Or, well, my brother was a metalhead growing up, and he's 6 years older than me, so I love metal, old school metal, because that was how he and I connect. Whatever, like it could be anything like that, right? It's not the metal music that I like. It's the development of that relationship. And I feel if art is taken off the table, whether written, but like, I will never buy My Fuhrer, right? I won't
Yeah.
do it. I have no interest.
Mein Kampf.
Oh, mine. See, all right. So, but I have no interest in that book, right? But I also don't believe that book shouldn't exist once it was created, because there needs to be somebody that reads that to understand what it is that's going on in that book, so they can relate it to their life and make choices. However, I could look at the history, which is the same as art, the history of Hitler, and say, I don't agree with anything that person did when it comes to humanity, because I believe that we are all equal and we are all wonderful creatures, and that we should come together and help one another, right? But if he didn't do that stuff, or let's say he did that stuff, which he did horrible, horrible, horrible stuff, right? Or so did Stalin. Stalin's horrible, right? But imagine we did.
Stalin has a higher
Yeah,
body
12 million,
count than
right?
Hitler,
12 million. Yeah,
and other dictators and other genocides are higher than the Holocaust. The Holocaust simply has better coverage.
well, all
And
right.
just look at numbers. And I'm not saying that it's not horrible. I'm not saying that it's not deplorable. I'm not saying that
They're
it
both
wasn't against
terrible.
humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying that there's been other stuff that has happened that people willingly ignore,
Well,
just
yeah.
because it Hitler, going back to marketing, Hitler's a catchy name.
Well, yeah, he's Adolf. But my point is, imagine we did everything we could to eliminate that truth from the world, right? There are some people that need to know that happened, so they can go, I agree with how it turned out. That's ill behavior. And also, if I do this, the world will come together and fight back. So I will not try to take over Germany did it twice. They were like, who I want to fight? The world, right? They did it
Twice.
Twice. The first time they're like, just kidding. And then the second time they're like, I think we can do it this time. I think we can, right? But that's the same with art and history and all things that allow us as people to sort of learn who we are and what we want. Because the first girl I ever had a crush on was Colombian, right? And for me to go by what I'm quote unquote supposed to go by, because like when you grow up, you're surrounded by a lot of people that look like yourself, right? Because you're a child. But I lived in a very diverse community, and I never saw her as Colombian. I just thought she was a beautiful girl, and I liked her laugh. I liked her personality. She's funny, like it was a whole bunch of stuff. And when I got older, when somebody was like, oh no, you can't date, dating people that aren't Italian or aren't white, even though I'm not white because I have Syrian blood in me because I'm Sicilian, right? So anyway, it didn't make sense to me. My brain couldn't comprehend the comment, and I was maybe 10 or 11, and I'm just like, I don't understand what you're saying. And they're like, oh, because they're different. And they're like, how? Yeah, well, we're all different though. Like no one, even twins are different. Like, because the difference is in here and in here,
And as
you
soon
know.
as you start, you even twins that have, I know different types of twins. The ones that are fraternal, ones
And the
that
ones that are
once
stuck
a boy.
together.
I have never met one in person like that, but I've met a variety of twins, and the things that they say are kind of creepy. And their experiences and their emotions and maybe stuff that they're feeling physically, they might even share, but it's not everything. It's
Yeah,
certain things.
they still
It's
have a
not.
difference. Yeah.
It's the birthmark is on the left cheek versus the right cheek. Who
Yeah, and I
knows?
I would probably sleep with what's her name? Black Widow. What's her name? Who's the Black Widow?
Um, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I would sleep with Scarlett Johansson, but I wouldn't sleep with her twin because he's taller than her.
But to what you're saying in terms of learning who and how we are, and also having lessons in art. Looking at the people that we've mentioned so far, there are questionable things that they did, but in terms of their work, there's conversations that we can have.
Yeah,
And when you can extrapolate topics, stories, even characters, and have a conversation, it has a benefit. This morally righteous thing of I'm gonna burn everything that I own of this person. It's like, okay, so apart from you thumping your chest, what other thing did you achieve? Not much. Let's talk about it. And
yeah.
and and I bring the bolderized version of Mark Twain because denying Mark Twain's impact on literature is ignorant at best. And also being ignorant of the things that are written and how they're written in the stories is ignorant because we have to talk about that and people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to feel bad because we've done X or Y thing. Dude, there's awful things that have been done by all sorts of people throughout humanity. And people say, oh, the Roman Empire, etc. It's like, dude, there's atrocities in every single culture, in every single historical period, in every single everything. And not wanting to learn from history is what's leading us to the path that we're going to because we if you see the 20th century and you see the 21st century and the things that have happened, sure, we have technology, but a lot of things have overlapped and we are performing even below the standards from last century. It's worrying and it is stupid.
That's subjective, but I would say this: like, imagine Tolkien came out, and it came out that Tolkien did one thing that in 20 years is considered horrible. In 20 years, like right now, if like you and I did it, people be like, whatever, I didn't even notice it. But in 20 years, this one thing is horrible. Imagine they're like, we have to get rid of everything Lord of the Rings.
Okay, Dr. Seuss is racist. Roald
You leave
Dahl
Dr.
is
Seuss alone.
no. People want to cancel Roald Dahl and Dr.
I
Seuss,
know.
both of them, and for reasons that you go like, okay,
They didn't
look
care
at the
about
book.
his pornography he used to make of his. I don't know if the characters he used to draw doing like sexual things. They found it. His kids found it in the attic. But
And dude, and everyone does questionable stuff in different contexts. Sometimes under the influence, sometimes with complete control of their faculties. It's just life. And again, life is a lot messier and a lot more complicated than people think. So canceling Royal Dahl and Dr. Seuss, what would that achieve apart from robbing kids from a lot of books that they can read? Yeah, but the books say they say what, dude? There's nothing that is blatantly racist.
well, they have some
in-
Chinese racial
well, yeah, okay. I
indications.
no, I walk back. Well, Peter Pan
Well,
and their
well,
depiction of
well, Peter
natives.
Pan was evil in the actual story.
True, but but
Yeah.
but beyond that, I'm talking about the Disney version. The way that they paint natives is absolutely racist.
Well, yeah.
But does that mean that the entire story sucks, or that's nothing is salvageable, or if you enjoyed it as a kid, you can't enjoy it as an adult? You can
Well,
enjoy it, and maybe when the questionable part comes up, you go like, that's rough,
that is.
but you're aware of it, and I think people not wanting to be aware of things is dangerous because if you're not aware, if you read something and you know that they're trying to sell you on Scientology or Christianity or whatever the hell, and but you know that they're trying to do that. You read it, you enjoy it, you still maintain your stances and your morals, and you're not swayed either way. Then a lot of good came out of that.
Yeah,
And
well,
people,
yeah, we got to learn
let's
though. Like you said, like Beetlejuice is a really
learn.
good example of evolving, right? So the original one, anyone who worked in the office, those people were there because they committed they decided to cancel their subscription to Life. Like every single one of them was a victim of, hey, I'm going to do this myself, I'm done with living. But in the sequel, they don't address that. They don't show the markings. They don't show that it's potential that they actually were, and they kind of breeze over the office people. And then they created this new group of people, which is the police officers, right?
Yeah.
So again, we can evolve, but I think, like, imagine you watch Beetlejuice and everything. They took out all those scenes of showing like wrist cuts or somebody has a neck cut, like,
Okay. Look at
how do
look
we
at
do it,
okay. Okay, how many cartoons did you watch growing up that had a character, putting a gun to their head and pulling the trigger?
Lots. And how many
Wow.
crows were not very respectful, you know?
Exactly. And seeing these stereotypes, established a certain way. Why are so many villains effeminate?
Now,
Back in the day, there were a lot of villains that would talk like this, and they would have certain mannerisms. And it's like, why are you depicting them effeminate
well,
and
that I don't know.
almost?
I'd have to look that up. I'd have to look that up.
There's a lot of villains that are
In
depicted that
Disney
way. And
or in
mm,
general?
I think in general.
You sure about that?
Um,
Because if I
yeah.
don't know if you've watched Mask of Zorro.
Well, there are very masculine. There are very masculine and almost ultra macho villains, but there are a lot of villains that are doing and that are effeminate in a way, and that's part of people projecting their prejudices.
Interesting.
Being aware of that makes you go like, "Oh crap!" And
You're
it's
saying in
not
some
something that
incidences,
I've seen it in several instances where you go like,
but
"What?
not in
What?
all. You're not saying
No,
that was the common. That wasn't the
no."
majority.
But it didn't happen in isolated cases. I saw it in more than once, and you have to back to ask, why is the bad guy that way?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well,
And
why is
and
the
to
good
me,
guy that way?
and why, if you
Why
go
is his
to
last name Bond? Bondage is uncomfortable for me. I think there should be a warning at the beginning of every movie.
well, James Bond was, he was a secret agent, but he was a murderer. He was a womanizer. There's a lot of issues with that
But
guy.
here's the real question. Was he, or did he do those things for the greater good of the government? But he himself, because there's in the new version of it, which is excellent storytelling, uh, there's a moment that's inferred that he's also slept with men, but that doesn't make him gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not. He just does what he needs to do to make sure, because he's. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Which leads me
it's
to
like
the
going
question: if
undercover.
Okay, if James Bond was bisexual or gay, would that be a bad thing? And some people
It
would kick,
wouldn't be a bad thing. It
but
wouldn't
some
even
people
be.
would kick off.
Well, that's because they're immature. But what I'm saying
Agreed.
is uh, like if I'm an actor and I'm playing a gay character, that doesn't mean I'm gay.
Exactly. But
Like,
people,
yeah.
can you separate the art from the artist?
Well, there are characters that were mostly male, the representation of men in at a time, and they were gay and they didn't know.
Mhm.
But even Wonder Woman, I don't know if you know this, but Wonder Woman's creator and the creator's wife were actually in a polyamorous relationship with another person, and Wonder Woman is based on bondage. So
Did
that's
not know.
a comic. So, well, yeah, I'm polyamorous, so I study these stupid things. But it's just fun to see that it exists, and that it's a healthy representation. But if you look at that through the lens and you're like, oh, kids read comics, this shouldn't be in there. And you're like, yeah, but
Okay,
it's
but
not necessarily it's not,
be- people kicking off on topics that are discussed and the way that they're discussed, you go like, why are we having this conversation? And some people saying Jesus was too woke, and I'm like, what?
Did you say Jesus was
Uh,
too woke?
Jesus was too woke. I've heard this. I've heard this,
Well,
and I've
3 days
seen this.
later, maybe.
But it does beg the question, what the hell is wrong with people? And maybe there's nothing wrong with them and they're completely right and I'm insane. Who knows? But
Well,
I see people kicking off on stuff that I go like, which goes back to, should we separate the art from the artist? And I always think that we should. And you can pick and choose the way that you support or that you consume or not things. But
yeah.
giving yourself the opportunity to do so and to try to learn something from it. It's like,
But should we judge people? Like, if someone goes out right now and buys Sandman, should we judge that person because they are A, supporting the gay men, or they just want to see what the book is about, or there was something about the book, but they don't know anything about Neil Gaiman? Like, how do we approach people still? Like, shouldn't we take that book off the shelf so they don't make the mistake, quote unquote? Or should we allow art to exist? Because imagine taking all the paintings down from the museum because we learned so much about so many different. Because at a time, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, he at a time he would be considered wrong because he was bisexual, right?
mhm.
And at the time, imagine they burnt all his paintings because he's bisexual, right? That would be insane, because the art has nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? Just studying those paintings, you learn about art and how painting works and like the techniques. And it
if
helps
you're
people that aren't, whatever.
if you're paying that much attention to what people are buying and judging them based on them, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
I don't think we should do that. And whatever drives a person to make a purchase, that's on them. If it's the right reason or the wrong reason, that's on them, and
Yeah.
that's not part of your existence. Uh, that we can still learn from stuff done by horrible people. That's a fact.
Mhm. And we're
That's a
not
fact.
saying Leonardo da Vinci is a horrible person for being bisexual. No, he was a stone in the block of like, there was a time where it was quote unquote evil to be not straight. And but
I've read
imagine crazy people
I've
burnt
read
his paintings because of that,
now, I've read most of Neil Gaiman's work. Am I gonna burn them? I don't know. When I engage with the art again, because I probably will at some point, depending on how I feel about it. That's on me, and that's my relationship to something that I already consume. People want to block it because they don't want to give them more money, etc. Okay, so you still want to read it. Are you gonna? I'm not saying that it's legal or not, but are you gonna pirate it? Are you gonna go to a library and read it?
Yeah, but
You're not gonna take it out. You're gonna read it at the library,
I'll
just so
say
that
this:
you can have an opinion.
Friends is a show that I watch. It's something that I enjoy watching. I watch it every other year. It's something I can enjoy, right? I come from the era. I have an emotional connection to the show, but I don't believe in drinking. I don't believe in drugs, but I don't care if other people do it. But I have never tried a drug. I've never tried alcohol. I've never smoked a cigarette. However, one of my favorite characters in the show is Chandler. And not only does Chandler smoke cigarettes in the show, but in real life, he had a drug addiction and alcohol addiction. But that never made me go, I can't watch this because of him. Like to me, it wasn't about the people in the show. It was about the characters of the show.
Okay,
And there's books I read that are like that too. And I can't be like, well, they do drugs. I can't read this book.
okay. Talking about my work. In the human cycle, there's a character called Liam. He's a vampire.
Mhm.
So he can live longer than most people. He's a chain smoking vampire. So he's been chain smoking for hundreds of years.
Wait, he smokes chains?
No. Um, I in part I wrote this character to help me quit smoking,
Yeah.
and so
Did it work?
it did. There were several factors, but in terms of controlling cravings and controlling the desire to smoke, I would write him and I would actually feel better.
Yeah.
Just because he was getting, it's like, and I'm like, okay, so I don't need to have a drag.
Yeah. He's smoking. He's dragging me through
So
it.
yeah, so it's very easy for people to think that I'm promoting the usage of nicotine based products and
Yeah.
cigarettes, and I'm not. and I openly say that I wrote this character to help me quit smoking. But
Oh, see,
what if
I wouldn't
someone?
know. I wouldn't even say that. I'd just be like, this guy smokes. Because that's the thing. Like, I don't smoke, do drugs or anything, but my characters in my books do because they're not me, you know? But which brings me to a question. We'll do this question and then we'll do the final question because, you know, we're an
Okay.
hour. Based on everything we've been talking about, does that knowledge of that world, that existence, those concerns that people have, does that influence what you write? Like, do you consciously think about like the subject matter and say, oh, wait, is this too controversial? Is this something I shouldn't put? Or do you allow the stories that you work on to go where they need to go, despite what people may say about the content?
The only time that I've edited myself is because I put something that could have, at an extreme level, could have spurned violence towards a specific person,
Oh,
because
like a
it's
person, not like a
a
group of
person.
people. Oh, okay.
It's because that character is based on someone who has done a lot of harm, and it's like I was very angry.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then when I read it back, I'm like, okay, this is not saying, oh, I'm gonna. It's like attack this person. And the last thing you want is for your art to embolden someone to do something that irresponsible. So in that instance, I had to write it out to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
I read it, and then I recognized that I'm like, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
That's the
Santa Claus doesn't deserve this.
No, but that's the only time that I've ever done that. Everything else, I go like, if you have an issue with the stuff that I'm writing, the decisions that certain characters make, we can have a conversation, or we can try to have a conversation. Um,
So are you
but I
saying
don't.
art itself is responsible for the influence it has over the behavior of other people?
No, no, it's always a combination of factors. It's what you've lived through, where your headspace is at when you
Yeah, yeah,
consume
yeah,
something.
yeah.
That is huge,
But I'm saying you took
because
that out because it could have influenced somebody to do poor behavior choices and you didn't want that
yeah,
blame to be on you. But if you feel the blame is on you, is that you saying that art is responsible for the influence
it's
of
like in the
behavior?
Dark Knight. In the Dark Knight, when the Joker called out for people to attack the mayor, I didn't want the equivalent of that in my life, in real life. I didn't want that, and
But
it's
who's responsible?
the person is
Oh, all
responsible, but
right.
I wouldn't feel comfortable, giving someone that pebble,
That
because
that
just
is
be
acceptable. That's fine. Yeah, like I won't sell alcohol to someone if I was a cashier. And when I was younger, I wouldn't. And people be like, "Why not?" I go, "Because I'm going to give you this alcohol, and then if you drink and drive, but I'm not. Yeah, but if you did and killed
yeah.
someone, I feel connected to that existence, and I don't want to. I don't want to be there. So that I get. I get that.
Yeah,
All right.
but I never write to market. I never pander. I never.
Do you pender?
What is pendering? I don't know.
When you take a pen and you write everything out.
Yes, I do. I actually do write by hand.
Oh,
Um,
instead of feet, like how else?
I haven't tried feet yet. I have tried with my non-dominant hand, and it yields interesting results. We can talk about that on another occasion. But I don't. That's the only time that I've ever done that, and it's because I read it and I was like, oh, that's too much. I've written some horrible things and some characters that have done some horrible things, not because I think that's the correct thing to do. It just serves the story. It's part of it.
Now, if you take
And
them as because they were humans, right? Or vampires, but
um,
if you take them and make them animals, does
it's the
that
same. A character is
it
a
doesn't
character.
reduce the evil? It doesn't reduce the evil.
No, and some people want to get away with stuff just by anthropomorphizing a couple of animals, and it's like, dude, a fable is still a story, and the
Yeah,
character
but
is a
they're two
character.
dogs. You expect that kind of behavior from those animals.
Well, the thing is
They
that
just
I've
sniff and
seen.
hump. They just sniff and hump. There's no dating. There's no,
No,
there's no
I've
flowers.
I've seen animals be more heroic than a lot of humans, and I've seen animals be animals, and I've seen
Well,
humans
that's
be animals. The thing
Yeah,
is
but
that
a
we
lion's gonna
just.
eat your face off. But if a human does it, you're like, oh. But if a lion does it, you're like, well, it is a lion.
Well,
I know the
maybe someone.
lion's talking, and I know it has thoughts and dreams and
But
aspirations. but I guess it would eat the person's head off.
Maybe the human was born in August and they wanted to take their astrological sign to the maximum. Who knows?
You never know.
But no, I do mention that because I did encounter it, but I'm mature enough and conscious enough to read something and go like, okay, that's a bit rough. And everything else, it's like if you find something questionable, I think it would be interesting to see why you find it questionable, and let's have a conversation, which is what a lot of people don't want to do. They just want to shout and shut you up, and it's
But what
like
if
that's not a
somebody's
conversation.
reading your book and like you took out the thing you thought was bad, and then they're like, I noticed you have your people doing cocaine, and cocaine took the life of somebody that I care about, and I think you should take the cocaine storyline out of your book. Do you listen to
They
that?
No, they can read another book. I
All
don't
right.
need to edit myself to that point.
And that's
My
important for anyone listening right now. If you're an author, like if people are like take stuff out because it bothers them, the way you fix that is by telling them read another book.
no, no, and I've had people go like, "Why did your character do this or this happened in the story?" And I'm like, "Because that's the story.
Yeah, yeah,
I would have done this," and I'm like, "Write your own story by
yeah,
all
yeah,
means, go for it."
yeah. I am a Marine, and I would have easily disarmed that robber. Why did the character let himself get robbed? Oh, because he's not a Marine.
Well, but when you get fact checked in that way, and sometimes I think it yields some interesting information that you might take on board. It's like, okay, in that building that wouldn't have happened just because an elevator works this way, and you go like, okay, I can tweak it, or I can recognize that most people aren't going to care, and
Yeah.
because they don't know the engineering that goes into an elevator. But if part of you goes like, hey, it would be interesting to explore that, and you're independently if you're self-published and you want to edit that, you have that freedom. I wouldn't do it just because for me, as soon as I publish something, the only updates that I would do is if there's a typo that I can't, that doesn't allow me to sleep, that every time I read it I go like, no.
Just tell them it's urban
um,
fantasy. Now it could be weird.
no,
The
but
elevator's not supposed to work like that. It's urban fantasy.
well,
It's all made up.
true. And you do have creative license to
That's
to
what I'm
uh, to a certain
saying.
degree. But if you, the problem is when you say, oh, you're going to do historical fantasy or historical fiction or stuff like that, that's when the pundits come
Yeah,
come a
but they're like,
swing
how
and,
did he
and go like
jump
that.
that high? You're like, it's historical fiction, but there's a fantasy
Well,
element. He's
and,
got super legs. And
and
they're like,
there's
how? And you're like, because it's fake.
and there I've done stuff when I've been under the influence of adrenaline and fear, that when I look back I go like, how did I jump that fence?
Yeah, how did I jump 40 feet?
Well, I didn't jump 40 feet, but I jumped like 8 feet. I vaulted in a way that I saw all these kung fu movies, and they allowed me to do the
Yeah.
move to get
Now,
away
when
from
you
a
vaulted
dog that was
eight
chasing
feet,
us.
when you vaulted 8 feet, were these people laying down and the feet were just lined up? Or all right. No, all right.
It
Let me get
was
my last question, JD Estrada. All right. I ask everyone this question. What is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
um,
Excellent.
uh, sometimes you have to do what I call the crepe method or the pancake method. When you're cooking this, normally the first one sucks. And sometimes you just got to do things wrong to learn how to do things right. I There's a particular short story that I wrote that I gave it to the beta readers, and everyone was like, I'm not feeling it. This is wonky. This is wrong, etc. And I'm like, okay, this is not a quick fix. This is not an edit here. We got to write the whole thing again. And I had to sit down and go like, okay, what can I do different that I think would fix it? Can I do this? Can I change this? Can I do that? Nah, 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 nah. Wait, what if I change the POV? What if the point of view is not the child that's getting run down by people, but something else, something more mystical, something more magical, something more fantastical, something darker, more eerie, etc. And I went like, that sounds interesting, and I explored that. And from a mistake, and from doing things wrong, and recognizing that I did it wrong, just because of people's feedback and it making sense. People will give you feedback, and sometimes you go like, "That's immaterial. I'm not. That doesn't apply." In this instance, it did make sense, and I listened to it, and I took it on board because I was like, you have a point. And so it's two things. First off, sometimes you have to do things right so that you can learn how to do how you have to do things wrong to learn how to do things right. Second off, you have to learn what type of advice and what type of feedback listen to and what type of feedback to absolutely ignore.
And what was it that you did beforehand? Because it's
I
completely changed into the thing. What was it you did beforehand, and how did you learn it? Was it yourself or someone else? And you're like, oh, maybe I should
it's,
change the thing I'm
I
doing.
thought it was rocking. I wrote it from the point of view of the child. There are some for Christmas in Puerto Rico. There are some kids that sing typical songs, typical Christmas songs, and after that, they're famous for like a hot minute, and then they kind of disappear. And I gave an explanation of that. That's the idea. The idea is still that, and what happens to the kid still is what happens to the kid. But the first time that I wrote it from the perspective, a first person perspective from the kid, and it didn't work because everyone was confused and everyone was like, ah. Then I changed it. It was still first person, but I
This was
changed
somewhere else.
who is telling the story, and that absolutely fixed it. To the point that if someone reads the original version and they don't like it, I go like, ah man, I'm sorry, I could have done better. On this occasion, with how the story is written, if someone doesn't like it, it doesn't bother me because when I read it, I go like, that's exactly what I had to, where I had to land. It's not going to
Nice.
be for everyone. Not everyone's going to love it, but people who connect with it, they've gone like, oh, dude, that was creepy. And I'm like, I know.
I like it. I like it. Now, JD Estrada, thank you very much for joining me. How do people find you?
Well, with this year going how it's going, we'll see how people find me. I do actually have a Substack, but if I'm on a social media platform, look for JD Estrada Writer, as in the word writer, Writer. And if I'm on that platform, that's the way to find me. If you're gonna buy my books digitally, Amazon is still the best option. I'm trying to remedy that to give people more options. But if you're gonna buy me physically, I implore you to check out what I'm posting and to see the local bookstores in Puerto Rico that carry my books. And I will do my best to make it worthwhile for you to pay shipping, etc. Just because if we can support local businesses back home and good people that are supporting the literary community, I will always prefer that, even though I earn less money, because it's true. I earn less money if I sell my books through them, but that doesn't matter because we're in this together in more ways than one. And to give you two names, Tazas y Portadas.
Of course.
I'll give you the link, and you can put it below. And the other one is El Rincón del Lector. I am from Puerto Rico. I love my island, and any way that I can support people back
Yeah.
home, I will do so. And yeah, those are your options.
Now, real quick, I noticed you spelled writer, but you didn't spell Estrada. So for anyone out there who can't spell writer but can spell Estrada, this isn't for you. This is for the people that don't know how to spell. It's
Okay, so JDEstradaWriter. JD Estrada Writer.
That's right, and it's not J as in JAY. It's J as in Q, or H. It's J as in H. It's J as in H.
This is just gonna confuse people even more. I love it.
Do you have a website or anything, or it's just?
I have a blog, but I'm going to shift a lot of stuff to the Substack just to have more control and be. The website has been in process, but until it's gonna come out, I'm not even gonna
Yeah,
say
you got to
anything.
get all the porn off. I get it. Now, do you have a YouTube
Yeah.
channel?
I do have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel again, just look for JD Estrada Writer, and you're gonna
All
find
right.
me.
For anyone listening, there will be a link for the YouTube, and there'll be a link directly to his Amazon books in the description below. Those will be the best ways to find him. If anyone wants to find him on TikTok,
I'm gone.
gone. No more videos on the TikTok. All right. Other than that, I guess that's it. We're done. We had a great time. This was exciting. I had a lot of fun.
Indeed.
Any last words you want to say to anyone?
Write on and write what you believe in. Screw the market. The market is eventually going to catch up to you.
All right. Could you say that in English and not Puerto Rican? No.
Puerto Rican. I can say it in Puerto Rican.
No, you know how like you know those jokes on TikTok where it's like somebody's like Arab or they're Indian, and they're like making like they're an actor getting cast, and they're just talking normal, whatever, you know, like they're just talking like, you know, whatever. They're however they sound, whatever they sound like, that's what they're doing. And they're making like the casting director's like, yeah, but could you do it in like the Indian voice? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. And then it'll be like, could you please give me the money that you owe me? And the guy's like, no. I guess what I'm saying is like more like your father would talk. Oh, can you give me the money you owe me? The accent, you know, the accent. And they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, it pays 40 grand. And then they do the accent.
Nah, I unfortunately, you know, I want to sell a lot of books. Eventually, I want to earn my living with my books. That's not the case right now. I do have a well-paying day job, so I will not pander to people that want me to speak with the accent. I can do it out of fun.
No. The joke is you are Puerto Rican, and whatever you sound like is your accent. So the joke is,
people,
you know,
people expect me to talk like this, man. No, people expect me to talk like this, and it's like, you're Puerto Rican. And it's like, I'm doing a bad Cuban accent.
I'm saying your accent that you have normally. I said that was your Puerto Rican. And then I was like, could you do it in American? It's like if someone said, hey, you're talking in Sicilian. Could you talk in American? Because I am Sicilian. So whatever comes out of my mouth is Sicilian. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
So like,
I get you. But I kind of love that I kind of love that we went off the rails at the end.
We had to.
It's
just the only way to end it. All right. With that, everybody, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. This is The Right Mindset. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.